I am a wizard!
Imagine summer. Imagine the smell of fresh-cut grass, the heat of the July sun, the buzz and whir of cicada calls. Pretty generic, right? These are the sights and sounds of summer. Anyone thinks of these things, and boom, summer. But take that a level deeper. What do those thoughts make you think of? Do you remember a party, or a trip? A day out in the neighborhood with friends, or private time spent in your own company? Odds are these thoughts are a little more individual, personal. Perhaps shared by a close few people, a couple, or even just yourself. If it's a happy memory, or if you remember it as happy, I'd bet that feeling's even a little bittersweet. You love it, but it hurts somewhere in your guts. It hurts, but you'll revisit those times with gusto, in the right situation. And it doesn't have to be summer, or a season, or any particular thing really. That feeling, nostalgia, can hit us at any time for any reason, with the slightest provocation. Sights, sounds, deja vu, or even smells can recall intense snippets of our past, and in some situations, those memories, or their entire aesthetic, can be retained, maintained, and revisited at will. Think of pop culture, movies, TV, music, and books. Think of how much value we tend to place on instances of art or fiction from our past. Consider shows like Robot Chicken, The Simpsons, or Family Guy that trade in surface nostalgia, or the constant bubbling of the Hollywood remake pot. And the impulse can seem cynical at best, and it feels a little bit like clickbait for your heart. So then, does that mean that any work that uses the past to make you feel feelings is inferior? I'm going to argue no, and prove my case with a cartoon canceled nearly a decade ago, Ed, Edd, and Eddy. For the younger folks and the ones that need a refresher, the Eds hit TV back in '99 and ran all the way through 2009. They premiered strong and gained a following of more than 30 million viewers during their 10-year run. To this day, Ed, Edd, and Eddy is one of Cartoon Network's most popular shows. But why the Eds? The show's universe is marvelously self-contained. The show rarely strays from the iconic cul-de-sac neighborhood, and overt references to the real world, let alone contemporary popular culture, are few and far between, if present at all. But still, the Eds are built from nostalgia in its most potent, weapons-ready form. And because they were hard-coated with the essential stuff of nostalgia, they, and the show as a whole, are capable of invoking the feeling in one of the most powerful ways possible, and in an unusual fashion. Let's start with design. The Eds' creator, Danny Antonucci, has explained that the show was intentionally designed to stand out from Cartoon Network's existing crop of shows. At the time, the Cartoon Network aesthetic was dominated by works of the Tartakovsky/McCracken school, such as Dexter's Lab, the Powerpuff Girls, and others in or around the cartoon zeitgeist. While not all exactly the same, many shows shared certain characteristics: hyper-modern or modern retro designs with hard-edged, thick outlines, dramatic angles, sharp edges, and bright, saturated palettes. Antonucci's Eds have a softer design, with less exaggerated, more organic shapes. The show's palette, while widely varied and splashed with day-glow Technicolor, was still more muted than other contemporary shows. Not to mention the ever-present boiling line, a distinct, shimmery-looking outline used to accentuate character animation throughout the show. The intended effect? A collection of affectionate nods to the animation of the previous century, particularly the 40s through the 70s, cultivated into a deliberately, visually, and stylistically different style than anything else on offer at the time, that nonetheless maintained modern, relevant themes. Characters were based on friends, family, and personal experiences drawn from Antonucci's childhood. The Eds themselves, self-admitted aspects of his own personality, Johnny and Jimmy, an eccentric neighbor and an effeminate cousin, respectively, and some, like Rolf, a mishmash of his experiences navigating life as a young second-generation Italian immigrant to Canada. All of this and more was placed against a relatively timeless backdrop of suburban childhood summertime. Was it a model of everyone's life? No. But it has elements that are common enough to childhood in general to invoke shared feelings and fondness for aspects of the past. To summarize, Ed, Edd, and Eddy appears to have been built out of nostalgia, rather than with the intention of invoking nostalgia. The main creative minds set out with a particular intention, to project something of their own lives and pasts out into the world in a way that would resonate with their audience. It sounds basic, right? Pretty bare bones and duh as far as storytelling or creating a world goes. If that's where you think I'm going with this, then you're right on the money. Those duh moments, those things that sound so boring that they come off as common sense, those are the real, solid, foundational elements you need to make something worth paying attention to. And when you're talking nostalgia, long-lasting industrial strength nostalgia, that's priority one. Pause on that real quick. We spent all this time talking, sidestepping the biggest issue here. Who cares? Why is nostalgia worth more than a passing glance in any artistic medium? Despite all the high-minded junk I've been throwing around, what worth is there in nostalgic art to anyone who isn't a sap stuck in their own past? Honestly, that's a great question. and I think we need to dig into our own experiences to get a feel for what that value might be. Consider the way experiencing nostalgia actually makes you feel. Even longing for sad bits of our past, we find ourselves feeling bittersweet about the memories. We might connect with strangers through a shared love of a band or movie or product, but ultimately, where we're finding that common ground isn't an object. It's a moment in time that means something special to each of us, both individually and as part of something larger. Without that common context, nostalgia is just a memory. Back to the Eds. Obviously, if you grew up watching the show and maintain a certain fondness for that time in your life, coming across it again from time to time is going to hit pretty hard. But what if you didn't spend summer evenings watching the cul-de-sac kids scrounge for quarters? What's in it for you? Imagine summer. Imagine the smell of fresh-cut grass, the heat of July sun, the buzz and whir of cicada calls, kids' games, hide-and-seek, sprinkler parties, and the crazy strong desire to find a place for yourself in a world you're just beginning to understand, but you try your damnedest to pretend like you know everything about. This is the Ed's world. It's not just a world where kids fight over candy and who gets to hang out where. It's a sounding board where adults look back on their own lives and recall them for younger generations. It's a world where adults can reminisce through the eyes of other adults and see a little bit of themselves lingering in the corners even if they never entered the room. And this is powerful. This is something stronger than simply pointing out that the past happened. Think back to my examples of Robot Chicken and Family Guy. There's a value to purely remembering and casting classic icons in an irreverent light, but the effect is often more superficial, more short-lived. The power of a work built from the stuff of the past that doesn't rely on that context to survive is in the ability to touch a common nerve, a tender spot in what it is to be human, not what it is to be born in a certain year. Sure, some context is always necessary, but often that context is much more general, and the broader strokes of emotion, rather than the exact precision of an object or song, serve to carry the bulk of the load. Does that mean the Eds are inherently better than toys turned puppets? Are friendships kindled over a forgotten album less valuable than time-tested relationships? Not necessarily. What we've looked at here is simply a basic set of tools used in a satisfying and well-practiced way. Raw, emotional touchstone nostalgia is a powerful tool, but it's one more suited to a strong, sudden burst or the capturing of a given moment. Long-lasting works that aim to be or become timeless in their own way, need to value patience over surprise, dedicated, slow pressure over a quick punch in the face. The Eds weren't designed to play on sleeping memories in an attempt to lure an audience from afar. They were built out of sleeping memories and let loose like toy mice in a maze for us to marvel at. They were made in a way that allows us to plainly see where they were born, but also to understand that we don't have to visit that place to enjoy their company. So, be on the lookout. Stop. Take time to enjoy cardboard carnivals and visions of our younger selves made up with pencil mustaches and trash can costumes, but be sure to check behind the facade, because there's more to a good scam than the flash and dazzle up front. Sidewalk chalk fades and the summer days get shorter, but the hunt for jawbreakers never ends. We're all looking for something, and while we might not always be sure what that is, the landmarks, the road signs, and the memories of our time spent searching are something we can always share, something that reminds us that even when we're alone, we're not the only ones. And, in the end, whether you're a lifetime resident or the newest kid on the cul-de-sac, if you've got a quarter and some time to kill, there's always an Ed willing to sell whatever you might be buying. Thanks for listening, everyone, and I hope to see you next time on Toonoscopy. Hey folks, thanks for watching, and I hope to hear from you down in the comments. What's your nostalgia show? What is it that makes you miss the past, and what do you miss about your past? And what do you think? Is it better to be more subtle with nostalgia, or more in your face? If you like what I'm doing here, be sure to check out my channel, Terminal Lazy, for more technical, in-depth analysis, art, stories, and a whole lot more. Thanks everyone!